This funny thing with the phone is that if the camera's on the left, I can't. I don't know what it is, but I got to have the camera over here on the right when it's facing me. A while back on the channel, I covered a remarkable piece of equipment called the Nagra SN, or Série Noire, the Black Series, and that was this beautiful piece of jewelry. I first saw one of these in the movie The Conversation, a Francis Coppola, Walter Murch film that is an absolute masterpiece on identity and subversion. Gene Hackman, an iconic Gene Hackman role. It's an amazing film. The Conversation, if you haven't seen it, we're going to talk about a couple of films in this video that you need to see. The Conversation is one of them. And at one point, this recorder is seen. And again, I want you to see the scale. It is this is like a piece of jewelry, one of the smallest reel-to-reel recorders ever made. So high quality. Nagra is a Swiss company the Nagra, N-A-G-R-A, the company that made this recorder, out of Switzerland, but started by Stephen Kudelski, a Polish engineer who, if I'm remembering what I've read correctly, started out working on magnetic tape as a data storage, but then because he was so good at designing the mechanism, he moved on to sound. And then Nagra made all of the best recorders, field recorders, for decades and decades. So I had always wanted one of these since I saw it in The Conversation. Then I started reading about them and started seeing that Nagra made these in the 60s, but at a certain point, I think it's in the 70s, a bunch of the three-letter agencies like the CIA and the FBI went to Nagra and asked for some specific design features for their covert use. And then Nagra would make these design features available to the three-letter agencies. And then a year later, as they upgraded the next model, they get to sell last year's changes to the public. It's an amazing story. And I revere this piece. I actually wrote about this first when I had a column for Wired Magazine for a while, and I wrote about this piece in that. And I realized that when I wrote the article about it, I didn't yet have one in my collection, and I was probably going to raise the price of them by writing about it. So I figured I ought to get one, and I managed to buy this one. I managed to buy this one for about $650. It was in a non-running state. Luckily, we have an amazing audio engineer, legend here in San Francisco, named Dan Dugan, and Dan got this up and running for me beautifully. But none of that is why we're talking about Nagras today, because, well, there's another Nagra video coming because there's been a lot of Nagra acquisition lately. So I was reading about, look, when you're an obsessive like me, you go back to the material that you've already gone over because you just want to see if there's new stuff you haven't learned. So, when I had this and I'm writing about it and I'm talking about it, I did a ton of reading into the history. And then I find other forums where sound guys are telling old stories and I learn new things about stuff. And I came across this mention of a Nagra being used in the movie Diva. Diva. This is the movie I want you to see. For people of a certain age, in our 50s, Diva was this really important movie that came out in 1981 as a French thriller. You could almost call it, it's not new wave necessarily, but it is a little bit like a tone poem. It's a thriller, but it moves at a weird pace, and it is one of the most beautiful films ever made. Jean-Jacques Benny is the filmmaker. He went on to make Betty Blue, another weirdo masterpiece of a film. Betty Blue is wacky and amazing. But Diva, when I was living in New York, I lived in Manhattan and Brooklyn from 85 to 90. At that moment in time, New York had, I think, 5 different rep houses. That is movie theaters like the New Beverly in LA, or the Alamo Draft House that played older movies. There were 5 different places in Manhattan where you could go see, Night of the Hunter if you wanted to, or Abel Gantz's Napoleon. Seriously, like, yeah, it was an amazing time. And Diva was always playing at one of these. And so we just saw it all the time. Like you'd see Diva like every couple of years. And now I bring it up and most people don't remember it. It feels like it's culturally kind of sort of disappeared. And I want you to know about it because, one, it's a really, really beautiful movie. It is about a young postman who falls in love with an opera singer because he loves her music, and he records it. And, and he records it, which is scandalous because she doesn't allow herself to be recorded. And there are other tapes that get mixed up with this tape, and shenanigans ensue, and some bad guys hurt some people and then get hurt themselves. Spoiler alert. But if you've ever seen The City of Lost Children, you remember the wonderful physical actor Dominique Pignon, who plays the clone, where he's like all of the different brothers, sons of the big bad guy in The City of Lost Children. Dominique Pignon plays this punk rock killer in Diva. I think it's one of his earliest roles. And he's just bald and wearing these little sunglasses. I don't think you ever see his eyes. And he's always listening to something and always saying, I don't like elevators. I don't like cars. I don't like driving. I don't like that. It's just always, whenever you hear from him, it's something he doesn't like. And the aria that is the centerpiece of Diva is, there's 2 pieces of music that are super, super iconic from the film. One is this aria from La Wally, which is really, really beautiful. And they play it repeatedly throughout the movie. So it better be beautiful because you hear it a lot and you just never get tired of it. It is so evocative and gorgeous. And then there's this other piece called Sentimental Walk, which is part of a montage sequence later in the film when our hero is on a lovely afternoon with someone he loves. I won't spoil too much of it for you, but Diva I showed it to Thing 1 and Thing 2 recently, and they're now 23, and they loved it. They loved it, which is super satisfying, right? You want to show this kind of thing to your kids. You want a certain reaction, which is never a good way to go into a thing, hoping for a certain reaction. But yeah, it delivered. So I want you to see Diva. Now, let's get to the point of this. What I come across while researching Nagra is that the recording device that Jules uses to record at the beginning of Diva is a Nagra, but it's a Nagra field recorder. And it's specifically, Nagra made many iterations of field recorders, and they were legendary. There's the 3, there's the 4, there's the 4.2, there's and then there was the 4S. The Nagra 4S is this 800-pound gorilla of field recorders. It was invented in the Nagra 4S comes out in the late 60s. Forgive me if I'm getting some of these numbers wrong, but I think it's the late 60s. Well, yeah. So, spoiler, I bought a Nagra 4S. I like to imagine, I have to admit, I have a collection. And it is a collection of movie props and other things and space hardware, but also I really like collecting technology that I think of as spikes on the graph, like real high points. And when you read when you read forums populated by people for whom sound is their living, and you read about the way they talk about Nagra machines and this beast particularly, you come to an understanding that this is a real spike on the graph of audio recording. So the first reason that it is an important piece of technology is its insanely low noise floor. That means the machine itself imparts incredibly low amounts of extra noise onto the tape. There is no way, even with digital recording, not to end up with extra noise in your recording, but you want as little as possible. And this thing is effectively like a studio quality recorder that weighs 4 kilograms and can be slung over your shoulder. It is every movie you have seen that was made between 1970 and like the mid to late 90s when digital audio fully took over. Every movie in that bracket was recorded on one of these. I mean, there are outliers, but seriously, every movie from the early 70s through the late 90s this machine was recording on site. And there are going to be some builds for this because, well, one, I want to try, you notice how the cover here is a little bit yellow? I want to try and do a hydrogen peroxide bleaching of it and bring it back up. And I also want to do some polishing with my Nova system to try and bring its shine up. I'm also had this, I made this strap. I made the strap hangers over here one afternoon just to be able to kind of move this around the world. But what I really need is a handle for it. And they make a handle, or they made a handle, but they're expensive. And so I feel like I'm drifting really far afield, but isn't that kind of why you tune in? The handle of a Nagra has a really specific oval piece of aluminum that is the handle. And then and it's a really easy thing to build. I'm going to build one today for it. But because I used to have this oval pieces of aluminum, I have these and I found them a long time ago on eBay and I bought a whole batch of them and I thought, this looks just like what the handle of the Nagra is, so I'm going to use it. Except, I know it looks kind of like it's the right size, but ultimately it's not. It's about 1 inch and 1/8 short. Yeah, it is 1 1/8 inches short. So I have like 15 pieces of this and it's too short. So then I go online and I start looking. Here's one of those really difficult search terms, and I'd love your help if you have some advice in the comments for me. What do you search for when you're looking for this? Oval aluminum, oblong, rectangular, soft edge tubing, rounded corner tubing. What do you go look for? I spent a long time and eventually failed. I ended up finding some steel. Now I have an issue with steel over aluminum. It moves heat differently, and I can tell that it's steel and not aluminum. And for some reason, that's problematic to me. But I was resolved. I found the steel that I wanted. It's got the oval cross section. It's even a little better than that one. And I thought, all right, I'm going to make the thing out of steel. Okay, great. Thursday morning, when I come in, make it out of steel. And then yesterday, I'm like chatting with someone, and I look down. This. And I knew this was there and I went looking for it. I looked over in that corner. The whole day I was realizing I didn't have any longer pieces of this. I went, didn't find what I needed, ended up ordering this, and then found this just sitting there. I'd love to know what you search for that shape. I was looking for custom extrusions. Yeah. Anyway. This thing is really beautiful, and I've been recording sounds on it because there's something really evocative to me about the physical aspect of placing the sound on the magnetic tape, of watching this thing go, of, oh God, yeah, look at these. Here. These two dials, you can link them if you want to, for the left and the right channel. Sorry, I think I should have said that at the front. The Nagra IV-S is the first of the stereo field recorders. S stands for stereo. I can't believe I buried that lead. The Nagra IV-S records in stereo. So you have two XLR inputs, and you can either have them as separate channels, or you can combine them and have a stereo have this record in stereo. And I have a beautiful Audio Technica BP 1405 dual element stereo XY microphone for this. And I have some plans. I have some ideas. But I wanted you to see this beautiful piece of jewelry, how gorgeous it is. The tape path is about one of the simplest in all of tape machines. And that also in and of itself is really, really like Stephen Kudelski, the lead designer of Nagra, the founder of Nagra, was a remarkable engineer. And there is an aesthetic and a love of clear engineering that shows through all of the things that they made. If you go start doing image searches for Nagra recorders, and then you look at some of the other recorders, you can really see, especially when you look back at reel-to-reels from the 60s, and you see what the landscape looked like. And then you see how much Kudelski was like simplicity, ease of use, clarity of purpose. Like Nagra was infusing all of these values into their equipment. And it is a real, like, these would be remarkable machines, even if they didn't look as good as they do, but they look good, not because they're beautifully designed. They look good because they've been so functionally designed to be easy to use that there is a beauty to that functionality. That is what I think is going on here. There's just nothing here that doesn't need to be here. And everything that is here for the right reason. And it's all really clear. There's a lot of buttons and dials and labels on this thing. But I'll also tell you that, like, reading through the manual, it's really straightforward. It is a very, very straightforward machine to utilize. At the same time as it is, from an engineering standpoint, an incredibly robust and powerful machine. Oh, yeah, 17 minutes. That is a long time to wax on about a reel-to-reel recorder, but such as it is. Thank you guys for letting me bellyache on about this magnificent piece of equipment and this wonderful company. Like I said, there will be some Nagra builds. There is also another piece of Nagra equipment to show you. I'm waiting for one more part for that. Yeah, thanks guys for joining me for this show and tell. And I'll see you next time. I did label this as a show and tell, didn't I? Yes, look, I did. All right. Bye guys. Cheers.
Hey guys, Adam Savage from Tested here. If you've ever seen the 6-inch ruler in inches and centimeters on my forearm and wanted one of your own, but you didn't want it to be permanent, well, today's your lucky day. You can now buy temporary tattoos of my measuring stick, my measuring forearm, at tested-store.com. Comes like this, goes on in about 30 seconds with a little water. The instructions are on the back. It comes off with rubbing alcohol, and hopefully it warms you up to the idea of permanently attaching a measuring device to your body, because I use mine every single day.